Welcome back to the Record Player, everybody. Scott with you. In 2003, Craig Martin formed a traveling performing concert series based in Toronto called Classic Albums Live, which features a revolving cast of musicians performing some of the greatest albums ever made in the world of rock music. And they perform them note for note, cut for cut, live as if you were listening to the record. One of these upcoming shows features the iconic 1987 U2 record, The Joshua Tree, which will be live at the Rose Theatre in Brampton on March 17th in a show partly presented by us here at TRP. Here to talk about it from Classic Albums Live is singer and musician Clamp. Welcome to the Record Player, Clamp. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I've seen a few of these shows over the years, but I hadn't up until a couple of years ago. This has been going on for 20 years. I hadn't seen my first one until maybe 3-4 years ago when I saw The Dark Side of the Moon. I was mad that I hadn't done it sooner after I saw it. It's for anybody who hasn't seen these shows. Can you explain kind of how the Classic Albums Live work, what the concept of it is, and kind of give us a general idea?
Absolutely. Well, firstly, I felt the same way. I actually didn't see them with my own eyes until I was invited to participate in a show. I'd only heard about them, but when I saw them that first time too, it clicked pretty quick that this is
what was your first?
A good. It was a Tom Petty show, Dan the Torpedoes, and I just literally came on as a backup singer that night. It was my first kind of. I reached out with said, "I'd love to get a feel for it somehow," and they thought that might be a good opportunity just to introduce me to their process, and it was great. And instantly, I felt the same way. I'm like, "This is a good night out," even though I've heard the name for years. It's pretty cool to see it, and just as you described, what Classic Albums Live aims to do is bring said classic album of that night, in this case, The Joshua Tree, on St. Patrick's Day at the Rose Brampton, is to bring that album to life, replicate it live on stage, no backtracks, no silly wigs, big light show, none of that. It's a real.
This isn't an impersonation, right? This is
no. If you're seeing a Beatles show, you're not watching four mop tops play the Beatles. You're just watching whatever amount of musicians is required to achieve the exact sonics of the album. That's what they're going to bring to the stage. It's a real. It's a listening. It's appreciation to listen to how close these performers can get to those albums, which is really, really, really exciting. Because I mean, a lot of the big bands themselves that they'll celebrate. If you go see U2 live or the Rolling Stones live, part of the charm of seeing that band live is they're probably going to take some liberties with their own material and go to a new place with them on stage. That's kind of the hook as to why you buy that ticket. But there's a great portion of the audience that really just wants to hear it exactly as it was done, and that's where Classic Albums Live delivers so well. It acknowledges why you became a fan of that band was those specific recordings. So that's what we deliver.
And it's a rotating cast, like I said in the intro. I mean, it's not exactly like it's the same band for every show. Certainly isn't.
No.
So it's just who decides? Is this a schedule? Like what happens here? What's the
it all kind of filters through. Craig, the founder, it still filters through his brain where he sees the appropriate musicians would fit. He's got a very sizable roster of musicians from all across North America, players from all over the world, but mostly all across North America. And if like for me, for example, when I first joined Classic Albums, which was only about a year ago, when I first spoke to Craig and he heard my voice, he immediately approached me with a handful of artists where he thought, "Hey, I think your voice could not only do this, but maybe try you on this show at some point and try you on that show at some point." So he's very cognizant of who will fit where, especially when it comes to a lead singer. He's also very cognizant of just having a great crop of players who can virtually do anything. Mm-hmm. Which I'm not. You're probably not going to see me do a handful of the shows that they put out there, but he's got drummers that can do everything under the sun. He's got bass players that they've mastered their instruments. So
and I don't want to
put together a great night.
I don't want to take anything away from the musicians, because I mean, obviously that's got to be hard to do, is play that exact record, note for note as best as you can.
Yeah.
And these are professional musicians that we've all grown up listening to. So I mean, I don't want to take anything away from them, but it's got to be a lot harder to try to recreate or duplicate that voice, right?
Yeah. I yeah, I think so. Which is, I think, where he will do Craig will do his best to assign a singer who's in the realm of that singer. He's not looking for an impersonation, which is fantastic, because I know none of us want to be impersonators,
No.
but he'll notice tonalities that certain voices have. And the note's pretty simple. The notes are pretty simple from his end. Learn it as the album does it, and get into that realm as best you can, which is great. And so you're sometimes sitting in a crowd going, "This is wow, he hit that line perfectly, but also you get to leave the stage with a piece of your own identity, which is nice.
So I mean, is there an audition process? Like, do you come in and sing for him, and does he say, "I'm looking for someone who sounds just like Don Henley. I'm looking for someone who sounds just like this person," and then you come in and audition?
There very well maybe. For me, it's I own my own little music venue in Toronto, which is exactly where I'm at right now, speaking to you. Craig wandered in here a year and a half ago or so to see a performer playing at my venue, a performer who is a Classic Albums Live alumni who plays sometimes for him. We struck up a conversation. It led to telling him I was a singer, and the musician he was here to see that night had heard me sing. And I think he just kind of looked over at Craig's like, he can sing. Like, he's people might say it, but he can. You should check him out. And he did. He went home and he I guess Googled my name, and he found some stuff, and he felt pretty confident to give me a try. So that was it. He gave me the shot, and if I'd have flunked it, then another shot wouldn't have come.
Do you do, in Classic Albums Live, you said that you did the backup for the Tom Petty. Do you do anything other than the Bono, other than the Joshua Tree?
Well, I've also led the Tom Petty show. That was kind of why they brought me in to do a backup that first night, just to get a feel for the actual show. A few months later, I stepped in and did a run of those shows all around Southern Ontario for them. So I've also filled in for a couple of Rolling Stones shows, and I did a cameo of a David Bowie voice for the Queen show, where they ran the song Under Pressure, and walked out for one song and went right back to the green room and drank all the beer.
What other musical projects do you have outside of Classic Albums? I mean, do you have your own band? Do you just sing in your place, or?
Yeah, I don't sing in my place at all, actually. I opened this venue 6 months before the pandemic hit, right here on Queen Street West in Toronto. This place, especially with the pandemic hitting, has occupied almost all my time that I would usually put into original projects. I have a history of original projects. I hope I have a future of original projects. But at the moment, this is all hands on here to kind of usher this through a pretty difficult period. The COVID climate, the aftermath of COVID climate. So in that regard, doing Classic Albums Live shows for me personally has been just tremendous, because I haven't had time to assemble a band and work on material. So suddenly I'm being invited into this place where I'm able to just step in front of an incredible band already ready and playing the kinds of songs and the kinds of albums that make most of us want to be musicians in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that's been the process for me.
Plug the venue. I mean, where are you? What's the name of it?
We're the Tonight Live Happenings Bar, Tonight Bar for short. We're on the west end of Queen Street in Toronto, in Parkdale. And for plug, you can find us at ithappenstonight.com or at ithappenstonight on the socials.
Sweet.
And a tiny little singer-songwriter venue. We do comedy shows, original music, And despite the chaos of the last few years, it's been a blast.
Sweet. Now I'll go back to the U2 aspect of it because that's what you're doing. Was U2 your favorite band when you were younger, or
as a kid? Absolutely. In fact, when Craig was here that first night, I really wasn't looking for a gig. I was just, bartender conversation. I was like, "Oh, I've heard of Classic Albums Live. Hey, let me know if you ever need someone to do like a U2 for you." Just
not thinking,
just kind of chatting. He smiled, and it's funny, later on down the road, he told someone, he's part of the reason I was able to assign this to Clamp was Clamp's confidence that U2 was something he could do. Because I think a lot of people will approach him and say, "I'd love to sing anything for you." Anything is a big, vast thing. So I think being specific played a role. And U2 definitely, as a kid especially, in those developmental child and teen years, at a point in time, they were music to me. Everything else didn't matter for a while there. So,
is Joshua Tree your favorite U2 album?
It's it's right in there that for every U2 fan, for most of them, I think the argument's always going to be that Pepsi Coke argument is always going to be Achtung Baby and Joshua Tree, and depending on my mood, it's one of those two I'll bounce back from as a favorite. But they're both still on an actual CD in my car, which we've abandoned CDs, but I've still got those two in my car.
For me, U2, and we've had this debate all the time on the record player with our viewers and our members. U2 is a tale of two bands for me. There's before Rattle and Hum, and then there's Achtung Baby and Up.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference between those two?
Well, I agree with you. For starters, I'd probably, the only difference I'd make compared to what you just said is I would say U2 from the beginning through Achtung Baby and then after. So I'll go one album further than you have built to that shift. Yeah, and it kind of felt like a difference between a band and a brand. Yeah. And definitely the band portion was probably the more exciting part. They're still an amazing band, but before you were reading about them in Forbes magazine for their innovations and investments, you were reading about them in rock and roll magazines, and that was definitely in the earlier part of their career, and that was the more exciting part for me.
Does Classic Albums Live take you? And you said you've only been there for about a year. You've just stayed in Canada. You've done the traveling throughout Ontario.
Yeah, thus far. Yeah, thus far.
Is this something that could take you worldwide? Does Classic Albums Live tour like throughout the world, or?
There's a big footprint across North America already. I know he's eyeing expansion, and rightfully so. It's the type of show it's got legs. Yeah. I'm from a British family, so I made it quite clear to him, if it's going over there, count this guy in. I'm in. It's got quite a big footprint across the States and in Canada at the moment, and expansion is definitely in their future.
That's awesome. I was too young to ever see bands like Zeppelin or The Doors, or for me it was from the age of 10 and up listening to the records. So going to see a show like this really is, for any of our viewers, I mean, it's definitely worth it. It's amazing. It's like putting the record on and closing your eyes, and you are there listening to it. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. We're looking forward to the Rose Theater. You said, I believe, where am I here? March 17th. Rose Theater.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, which I did not make that connection, so thank you.
The perfect band to celebrate on St. Patrick's Day.
Joshua Tree with Classic Albums Live, featuring Clamp on lead vocals, presented in part by us here at TRP. We will see you in Brampton, Clamp, on the 17th. Thank you so much for being with us and explaining this a little bit to me. I needed a little bit of a schooling on Classic Albums Live. So
there you go. Thank you.
Take care.